Hello and welcome to the latest Chamber Q&A, and we're speaking to all of the different presidents of the different divisions within the Greater Birmingham Chambers of Commerce, and today I'm delighted to be joined by the president of the Solihull Chamber of Commerce, Mr. Robert Elliot. Robert, hello.
Hello, Paul. Hello. Nice to talk to you. How are you?
I'm very well, thanks, Robert. Yeah, how are you?
Yes, very good. Very good, thank you. The family are safe and well, and that has to be the main consideration at this very moment in time.
No, very much so, very much so. Now, Robert, as an opening question, I've been putting to our presidents. I mean, how has the role of president changed since the coronavirus situation has sort of swept over us? And, how have you had to adapt in your presidential role?
Well, I think timings were quite ironic, really, because literally I finished year one. We had our AGM on the 9th of March, and then literally within 10 days of the AGM, Boris Johnson made announcements that he made, and the country went into the lockdown, and year one of presidency was never going to be the same as year two. You could see that was going to happen straight away. And I think what we looked at in year one was very much a case of, it was all about events, it was all about communication, it was all about getting people to be meeting face to face and doing business with each other. And what we've adapted to in the last, well, it's 4 weeks now, isn't it? What we've adapted to in the last 4 weeks is that there's a whole virtual world out there, which I think many people are a little bit scared about, but now we're all getting, well, heaven forbid, famous last words, we're all getting even better and better at it on a daily basis. So certainly from a Chamber of Commerce point of view, it's very much been a case of, this is when the whole communication side of things comes into place, and things like the Solihull Hour and the Solihull Chamber of Chat, which for us are really convenient because one's on a Tuesday evening, one's on a Friday morning, so there's a nice little distance between the two of them. And there has been some fantastic dialogue between the members across social media. I think the newsletter's become even more relevant now than it's ever become, because people are able to almost see that as the weekly update, if you like, that things are still going on. So we've gone from this real sort of emphasis on meeting face to face to now having this emphasis on meeting virtually.
Yeah, and communication is so important, isn't it? And I suppose that's one of the core elements of the chamber is communicating, as you say, be it face to face or now sort of digitally, and supporting each other. That's part of it, isn't it? It's swapping messages, making sure we're aware of what we're doing, and then coming together as a community to look after each other and to back each other, and ultimately to help each other's businesses to try to sort of thrive and prosper and throw up new opportunities. So you're right. It is about that sort of spirit of togetherness, and why being involved with the chamber can add so much value.
I think one of the things that we found in Solihull, and it's going to be the case across all the divisions of the Chamber of Commerce, but in any crisis, in any situation, there's going to be certain companies, certain industries which will almost come into their own, I think. And then there'll be other industries which do find that times are very, very tough. And I guess the whole idea of being a member of a Chamber of Commerce, it's you are a member, and I think that's really what it's all about. You're there to help each other, and there are times in life when people who perhaps are in a position of strength can help some of the people who are in a position of weakness. And I think you look at it, don't you? Look at it in terms of your family, your business, your Chamber of Commerce, and then your country. And I think we've done an incredible job as a country of doing as we're told. I think we seem to, it was a bit shaky to start with, but I think as the lockdown continued, everybody has suddenly thought, well, if we're going to get out of this, we need to do as we're told, and we need to do the right thing. And there's sporadic reports of traffic numbers going up maybe, but actually the averages are good. And the pictures you see on the news and on social media now of the parks and things like that, I think people do seem to be doing the right thing. So, but then there's that responsibility that at some stage, those strong companies are going to have to help the people who have been in a weak situation. And equally, us as citizens, we're going to have to do the right thing as well. And there's many considerations to be made there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, you mentioned the AGM, which of course we held at Solihull Moors, who are Solihull Chamber members and had been, having another good season in the National League, and talk about impact on businesses, because the league, I think it was earlier this week, said that, right, that's it, we're finishing the season, we're going to work out how they manage promotion and relegation. But an example, I suppose, of this coronavirus directly impacting on a business. I mean, what Moors have done, the investment in the club has been phenomenal. They've got really sort of brilliant ambitions, and I suppose this is one where this year now, who knows what may have been, and that's the same for lots of sports clubs, of course, but they're not going to know, and so it sets back plans by another year. I mean, that's just one example. And what else are businesses in Solihull and your members sort of saying to you? That there's challenges all over, but are there particular sort of issues that are coming to the surface more often than not?
Well, I think it depends on the size of the business. I think there are, you get some of the headlines, you hear some of the stories with regards to Jaguar Land Rover, and some of the changes that they've had to make to their day-to-day operations. You hear in terms of Birmingham Airport that obviously air traffic has reduced beyond recognition. In fact, that's why the RAF are doing practice flights now in and out of the airport. But I read something quite interesting last night on social media, because I work very closely with Solihull Metropolitan Borough Council and Councillor Courts in particular, who's the leader. And he was saying in a message yesterday that the Borough Council have already given out £17 million worth of grants. They've gone out to 1,230 companies. Now that in itself sounds fantastic, because I did a quick calculation. That's about 14,000 in average to those companies. But apparently there's still 677 businesses that could apply for that sort of funding. So I think, in terms of what we're hearing is that there are certainly a lot of companies in the Solihull area, which is very strong in the service sector, that you're only as good as the work that's coming in. And I think there's almost a bit of a balance between, as the work comes in, more people will be needed to service that work, and obviously that will then generate more work, and that can help the situation. But I think what the businesses in Solihull are probably looking at the most is what any end game might look like in this particular situation. And that's where the Chamber comes in. And the Chamber, and I've said this to you, Paul, on a number of occasions, I think the Chamber, the Greater Birmingham Chamber and the Solihull Chamber have done an incredible job of keeping that flow of information. And some companies, it's like any information, isn't it? It's like your children sometimes. You think you can give them a piece of information and they'll use that information to their advantage, or they won't listen. And so companies are the same. Yeah. And I think, there's that expression that you learn something every day. And literally a new piece of information has come out every single day. And you take what you want and you work with that piece of information, and it will help you accordingly. But it's all to do with, really, I think businesses are just focused now on what the future looks like. There was an element of, right, we need to get used to this. We need to understand what our challenges are. And I think people have now got they've got everything in order, but now we're all looking to the future. And I think in business, really, in any organisation, actually, be that public, private sector, charity, education, or business, we are all looking at what that future looks like.
Yeah, and the exit strategy is becoming increasingly sought after and important, isn't it? And I think, and that's certainly, I know, with our messaging and our sort of lobbying, that sense of, right, we do need to start knowing what the rules of the road are going to be. They're not going to be the same for everyone. It's going to be sort of a phased approach. But I think people want to start to be able to plan and move on from just adapting to be able to do what we can from home, certainly, and sort of new opportunities to say, right, how are things going to start to look like in the medium term, at least. I think one thing I know we've talked about Robert, as well, which is so important. And we've just recently launched our Mind the Gap sort of report, which while all of the government support measures are very welcome and significant, there is lots of organisations, lots of businesses who they don't cover and are being missed out, and it's important that we don't leave anyone behind. And so that's why we've called it Mind the Gap. And I suppose the input from members is so important, isn't it? Because if we need them to be talking to you, to the exec team, to the broader chamber team, so we can understand what some of the issues or challenges are, and then we can lobby on behalf of those businesses, which is one of the core functions of the chamber. So that engagement strikes me as being super important at this time as well. Would you agree?
Well, I think so. I think, Paul, you and I have both, in our previous careers and present careers, we've dealt with memberships in one way or the other. I'm in the hospitality business, and many hotels that I've worked in the past have had leisure clubs. And the only way sometimes that those leisure clubs would improve is when you actually sit down with the members and ask those members what we're actually giving them and whether or not it's what they want. And it's amazing sometimes that in a membership of 1,000 people, it would always be 25 people who would turn up to the meeting and 25 people who would tell you what needed changing. Yeah. But maybe they were the right people because they were the ones that were using the club just 5 days a week or something like that. However, any membership is only good as what the member puts in, but then equally what the actual organisation listens to. And I think that whole engagement piece is going to be part of that strategy moving forward, because we've got to be very conscious as a Chamber of Commerce that people have invested in the Chamber of Commerce. They've invested their company, their organisation, and part of their strategy has been based on being a member of the Chamber of Commerce. They may have sacrificed not being a member of another organisation in order to be a member of the Chamber of Commerce. So regardless of whether we are in any sector, there is an element of value for money, or should we say value for your investment. And I think it is great now that to see the Chamber of Commerce with the Mind the Gap campaign are looking to the next stage. And you're right, there is a phased approach. And again, in the hospitality industry, that is one industry where perhaps that phased approach is going to be the one that matters the most. And isn't it, again, it's interesting how information just keeps on coming, because our trade press is the caterer. Well, it's one of them, but certainly one of the most recognised is the caterer. And literally this morning, they've published a survey that 2/3 of people will be reluctant to go to a pub when we have some sort of relaxation of the lockdown rules. And I think there was a slight improvement when it came to cafes and that sort of thing. But that just goes to show that there's going to be a reluctance, if you like, just to get back out. Now, that may not be the case in every industry, but I think also we have to make a consideration that a lot of our members, and I've heard stories already that perhaps 50% of the workforce will go back on certain days of the week. The other 50% will go back on the other days. And without sounding dramatic, life as we know it will not be the same again. And the reason we've done so well so far is because we've had really clear guidance. It's been very, very clear. And you ask most people in the street, what are the rules that we are currently working under? And they'll talk to you about journeys, shopping, exercise, stay at home. We need the same kind of guidance for when we come out the other side, because any grey area, and well, the chief medical officer, he says it himself, we'll just be back to where we started, and we can't afford for that to happen.
No, I agree, and I think it's going to be crucial. We've got to handle this part of it very, very, very well, and give the clarity to people, to businesses, and then we'll kind of use our enterprising natures and make the best of this, won't we? I kind of have no doubt about that. But I mean, no, thank you, Robert, for all that you continue to do. Leading the chamber in Solihull and representing the views and needs of your member businesses and the broader business community, and as you say, the links that you've got with key stakeholders in the region. Just as we wrap up, any last sort of message for viewers out there from yourself?
Well, I think we've been saying this a great deal across all the chambers and all the communications we've had through the chambers. it is all about us. We have to keep communicating. And if you've got something to say, this is the chance now, because your audience is almost bigger now than it ever has been, because we're all looking at social media, we're all reading stuff, we're all going on webinars that perhaps we haven't had the time to do before. So if there's something to say, there's never been a better time to say it. And I think every Chamber of Commerce, we all want to hear the good stories. We want to hear what's going on, because in one way or the other, we will all be touched by this in a sad way. We all will. And everybody needs some good news. And sometimes people are very reluctant to actually communicate the good stuff. So we need the good news stories. We need to make sure that we keep talking and looking at the information that's coming out and keeping a very positive mind. And my family have been ridiculing me a little bit because I have adopted a term, and it was Her Majesty the Queen's term, and that is that we will meet again. My industry, of course, I want people to meet again, but I genuinely believe from a Chamber of Commerce point of view, with award ceremonies coming up and postponements and looking forward to the future, that we will meet again. And it has to be that we stay safe now so that we can actually meet again in the future.
Yeah. Well, it's good enough for the Queen and it's good enough for the President. So I think it's certainly good enough for me. Robert, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you very much indeed for everything the Chamber of Commerce are doing. It's fantastic.